Hello, everyone, and welcome to Looking Up, a podcast for Christian women. We're excited to have you with us today. We're going to talk about some fun things and make it a light-hearted episode, and we're just wanting to bring some light and encouragement to your days. And I'm Carla Moore, and I'm here with Kathy Pollard, your other host, and we are welcoming you. And Kathy, how are you today?
I'm doing great.
Good
I
to
missed
see
you though. It's been a long time since we've recorded because we had to record early last week.
Yeah. And now this is Thursday. This is our usual day to record. So Is it sunshiny there?
It is. It hasn't been. It's been cold, and I mean bitterly cold. So we have a little sunshine. It's warmed up. I went outside and just kind of soaked it in like a lizard.
Yeah.
Went out to the herb garden and saw the little growth coming up, and I'm sure the cold is coming back again, but
yeah,
no doubt. The glimpses of spring are nice.
It's coming. Yeah, we've got a little bit of a dreary day, but that's okay. We need a little bit of rain. So it's good to be together again and have some things to talk about. And so tell me what's going on on your homestead.
Lots of things since it's been so long since we've talked.
Yeah.
So homestead wise, we had all the kids over the weekend for grilling and games, and Neil smoked a brisket. And so when on the front end, you're supposed to trim off some of the fat. And I asked him for it. So he trimmed it off and gave it to me, and I cubed it and threw it in the crock pot and made tallow for the first time ever. So I'm very excited about that. It turned out really, really good. And
what is tallow?
Tallow is, how lard, you know what lard is?
It's rendered fat, isn't it?
Yes, from pig. Well, tallow is the same thing from cow.
Oh, okay.
From beef.
Learn something. See, people, you've learned something new already.
So, he just cut off the fat, and I cubed it up, put it in the crock pot, and let it go low and slow until it all just dissolved and was clear. And then I strained it really well and let it solidify in a jar. And now I've got this really good pure tallow to use. And so I made, what day was that? Yesterday, I made homemade flour tortillas with it. And I was so excited. I was almost giddy that I've been wanting to try that. And it was a lot easier than I thought. You can actually, after it solidifies, you can actually go through that whole process again, melt it all down, strain it again, and then it'll be even cleaner and purer and almost, vividly white the second time around. And then you can use it on your skin because it's supposed to be really good for your skin.
Like a cream or a...
Yeah, you can use it in moisturizers and things like that. But I wanted to use it for cooking. So, and it's shelf stable, so you don't have to keep it in the refrigerator. You can just keep it on the counter.
I associate tallow with candles for some reason. Do they make candles with that? Maybe I'm thinking of Little House on the Prairie.
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. That makes sense. Maybe they do that and beeswax together or something. I don't know.
I keep bacon grease all the time. And sometimes I a couple of weeks ago in Denver, I made a bunch of bacon for something. I don't remember what. And I kept all the bacon grease and I was offering it to people because I didn't need that much. And some of them looked at me like, why would I want bacon grease? Yeah. And I thought, why would you not want bacon grease to cook with? Yeah. But is that the same thing as lard? Bacon grease? Is that lard?
I don't know. I don't know if it has to be from a certain type of fat on the pig. I really don't know that.
Do you use bacon grease?
Yes. Fat has had such a bad rep for so long. We grew up hearing that it was really
fat
bad
makes
for
you fat.
Fat makes you fat. But really, it's just the type of fat. And we, as a society, have been consuming fats that aren't good for you, and seed oils and vegetable oils and canola oils and things that aren't good for you. And that to be able to get back to the purer forms, they have health benefits for the body. Now, you don't want to eat a lot of it.
Yeah. You don't want to eat a spoonful of it.
Yeah. But anyway, I did that. And then I also, another kind of fun thing I did was I made my facial wash for the first time.
Okay.
So that's with Castile soap and jojoba oil and the cool thing about it is distilled water. The cool thing about it is you can cater it toward where you are in your skin journey or in life, so if you're dealing with acne, you can put tea tree oil in it. If you have a more mature skin, like some people I know, I don't, of course, but some people I know might want to put frankincense in it, or rose, things that are good for anti-aging kind of things. So I'm really excited about that too. It smells
Wait, I'm still stuck on jojoba because I've seen that word and I always thought it was jojoba.
Maybe it is. I've always said jojoba. So,
well, I'm sure you're right and I'm wrong because I don't even know what it is. I've just seen the word.
It's
this
really
chair. I'm sorry it's creaking, but we're just going to have to deal with it.
I can't hear it.
Okay, so, good.
It's really good and nourishing, moisturizing for your skin, and your skin absorbs it really well because it's a lot like your skin's natural barrier. So it's good for facial products. But so the only thing I don't know yet is if my ratio is good, because Castile soap can be a little bit drying, moisture stripping. So far I've been using it for about a week now, and so far my skin doesn't feel too tight, but I'm gonna see if I need to adjust it back a little bit. But
did you put a scent in it? The tea tree oil, I guess.
Oil, I didn't use that in mine because I don't have the breakouts, but I did use frankincense, rose, and lavender, and because all of those are good for your skin, so I can smell those when I use it. But you have to shake it because those things will separate out. The oil also gives the essential oil something to cling to.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was probably more than you wanted to know.
You
about
really are Mother Nature.
Yeah.
No, Mother
How
Nature.
About you? Share something fun that you did.
Well, of course, we made the trip back to Texas, and that was uneventful. Thankfully, we always pray for an uneventful trip rather than just a safe trip, because you can have a safe trip and it be eventful. We don't want eventful. But we got home on Thursday, and the kids all came. They started coming on, we call them our kids, but they're grown people. They came Sunday evening, Monday morning to clean up all of the brush damage that happened around the house. And so we spent some good family time together. And I tell you what, having that many hands around the property, we knocked it all out. I was shocked, really. Alyssa's parents, Greg and Tina, came, I guess, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they did a ton of work. They got a lot of things pushed together in more manageable piles, and really took care of a lot of the mess. And but there was still a lot left to do, and they told us that there was a lot left to do. And so there we had 1, 2, 3 fires going on. And thankfully it was not windy and it was not super dry, because there ordinarily is a burn ban going on around here. But they the boys all had chainsaws and they were cutting down limbs, and Jordan brought a pole saw. It's funny, these are my sons, my children, that it's still, I have to stop myself from saying, don't cut your arm off, like like a mother, just be careful, don't hurt yourself. Of course they're not going to try. You'll shoot your eye out.
Yeah.
But they're outside with chainsaws, and the kids, the grandchildren are running around too, which makes me nervous with the fires going on. But between all of us, we managed to obviously either keep them inside or keep them away from the fires. And but it feels so much better now, and there's a lot more clear sky with a lot of those branches down, but it was good. We also had a little kind of a family birthday celebration on Monday night, because I wanted to kind of have little birthday things for the big grandbabies, because we miss a lot of those being in Denver. And we missed Clara. She turned 2 on February 2nd, and Turner will be 2 on March 30th. And we missed Clara's, and we'll miss Turner's because we'll be in Israel. So we just had a birthday party for everyone. I bought a little tiny gift for everybody, so everyone had something to open. And the kids and I made dirt cake together, and it was fun. Turner, I had bought Peeps and just have you made dirt cake before?
It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time for me too, but I thought that was something they could help me with. And Turner just take a bite out of the top of the peep and stick it in the middle of the cake.
Bite its head off.
Yeah. So
is he a little Ozzy Osbourne, or is that the wrong guy? Who is the guy that bit a rat's head or something like concert?
I think it was a bat, and I don't remember. I know what you're talking about, but yeah. Why in the world would anybody do anything like that? That's where your mind went.
Oh,
But
well,
anyway,
sorry.
we had good family time.
I saw your pictures on Facebook. It looked fun.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
a fun
it was.
person.
Well, I try, not very often, but sometimes fun comes out. Yeah.
Accidentally.
Yeah. But I didn't get to do any thrifting this week. There was just way too much
Oh,
other things going on and not
yeah.
enough time to thrift. That was
Mhm.
low priority list.
Mhm.
So anyway.
Well, that kind of work when you have everybody joining in makes it fun too.
It was, yeah. And
Spending
Roland,
time
my
together
brother-in-law,
and
my brother and sister-in-law live just down the street from us, and he has
Mhm.
a small John Deere tractor. So he came up several times and used the front end loader part. And I
Oh,
probably am
that's
calling it the wrong
nice.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And he
helpful.
pushed all of the piles together and pushed them into the fire. And ordinarily when it's just John and me, John's cutting with the chainsaw and I'm dragging into
Mhm.
the fire. And so piece by piece is much slower than getting a tractor and just pushing it all together. So anyway, we got a lot accomplished and it was good.
That's good. Is
Yeah.
it all completely done?
It's never done. I mean, we have
Yeah.
cedar trees out here and so we're always clearing out, and the property has changed a lot since we moved here. We've cleared a lot of trees off of it, and that's kind of how John and I enjoy getting exercise. It's just going outside and working on the land, cutting down trees and burning them. But I was thinking, this is a side note. I've thought about this before with the fires. When it all burns down, there's this huge pile of ash in the front yard. There's actually 3 big piles of ash now. And for several days after the fire is out, you can go out there with a stick and you can just kind of poke around. And if you want to throw another branch on there, once you stir the ashes around and the coals come out,
Still burning?
it's still burning.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's scary with kids around because they might think that it's fine to jump in, which would be bad anyway, because it'd be a mess. But it just made me think about so many things. I've written about this before, but every time we have an ash pile, I think about it, how you can stir up something so easily and catch it on fire again. And I think about our words and how if we just leave it alone and let it die out, but yet we always poke it back up, don't we? We're always tempted to bring that fire back out and poke it up. We should just leave it alone. But it's
give it some time to cool off and die out completely,
or pour water on it. Just
there
stop
you go.
it.
The living water.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so you got a lot of workouts in this weekend.
I did. Got a lot of steps.
Good. Well, I had some excitement.
You did?
When Neil was out of town.
What happened? You didn't tell me about this.
Well, he apparently kept trying to call me, and yeah, my phone had died, and so, but we had already had a good night conversation. When it's the last call of the night, because we both said good night. So I didn't think anything of it. My phone died. I just plugged it in on my nightstand and went to bed early. It was like 9:30 when I went to bed. I mean, there was nobody here in the house. I read for a little bit, went to sleep. The next morning, I was startled awake by somebody banging with their fist on my front door. Now, we have doorbells. We have a doorbell and we have a Ring doorbell, but they were banging with their fist on the front door. About gave me a heart attack. And because I looked at the time and it was 6:15. Now, when Neil's home, I'm up at 6, but when he's not, I don't set the alarm. Typically, I still wake up early, but apparently this morning I did not. And so I was startled awake and I ran and I peeked out the window and thought I saw Carl's truck, our youngest son, Carl's big white truck. And then I was just absolutely terrified because I thought, what has brought them to my house at 6:15 in the morning? And he's banging, like, I just knew it was some horrific thing had happened. Yeah. And so, when you have that moment of fear, like, I don't want to face this.
Yeah.
But I thought, and I ran out the side door and he wasn't at the side door. He was at the front door. I could still hear him banging. So then I started yelling, Carl, Carl, Carl. And I'm over here. And so I'm just almost ready to cry, thinking something horrific has happened and Neil's out of town and oh no. And it wasn't Carl that walked around the corner. It was one of our deacons.
Oh, great.
Jeremy Waddell. Now, Granted, he's also one of our friends, but still.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, then it dawns on me, I am in my shabby pajamas.
Oh no.
And I kind of did a little like, ah! And I ran back in the house and I was like, just a second. So I had to grab a robe and put it on. And I went back to the door and I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then I thought, why is he here at 6:15 in the morning, banging on my front door? Come to find out, Neil apparently tried to call me at 10:30 the night before. I was already asleep. And he had been texting me and trying to call earlier that same morning, and I didn't answer any of it.
Scared him.
I scared him. And so he started assuming the worst. So anyway, Jeremy's saying, I just got off the phone with Neil. He goes, are you okay? And I was like, yeah.
Do I look okay?
I know. No, I can answer that one. I did not look okay. I had eye boogers. I had wild sleep. I had sleep wrinkles. It probably drool, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And I hadn't talked to anybody because I just woke up because it's like, hello.
Wild party at your house the night before.
Yeah.
Huh?
So while I'm like talking to him, like smoothing my hair down, got the robe all huddled up in. But he said, I just got phone with Neil. He's worried sick about you. He says you're a light sleeper, but you didn't hear a doorbell. You didn't, and I said, I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry. Yeah. And so he left. And then I called Neil and I was like, Neil Pollard, I am going to kill you. Don't you ever.
And he was going to kill you.
Send somebody to my house at 6:00 in the morning. But he was like, oh, you're okay. And he said all these scenarios went through his head. He thought that I had a heart attack and I fell over and was laying on the floor. He thought I fell down and hurt myself.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm not 80.
It does happen to 30-year-olds,
Well, and then he goes, well, then I thought the boogeyman came and you were like pinned down. And I was afraid of what Jeremy might find when he got into the house. So anyway, then it took a while for my heart rate to come back down because the whole thing was just, first I thought something horrible happened to one of our kids. And then I was just embarrassed that I got busted, looking the way I did. And it was, let me for the record say, it was very nice of Jeremy to be willing to do that.
Sure.
So there was that. Well, then I
next time he needs to back up to the door, knock like this, behind us and not look at you, right?
That's right. Oh, man. Well, yeah, it didn't help that I ran all the way outside. So then I noticed that I smelled something funny in the house. And I should shorten this story, but to make a long story shorter, I'm sorry. I discovered that we had a gas leak and I had to call the gas company and they found it. It was a very strong, very, very strong smell in the house. And so it's possible because I noticed it the night before. Something
that made you
funny.
sleep hard.
Yeah, it's possible. That's why I went to sleep early. It's possible that that's why I was hard to rouse because normally Ollie is our little 10-pound doggy and I can hear him when he jumps off the bed. That always wakes me up.
Yeah.
But nothing woke me up. And so it could be that that's what was going on. And Neil was like, see, I saved your life.
He may be right.
Jeremy saved your life by going over there and pounding on your door at 6:15 in the morning. So
did you ever feel bad that day?
No, I didn't. But what had happened was as soon as I came back in from talking to Jeremy, I noticed the smell. And so I opened the sliding glass door right away.
Yeah.
But anyway, what happened was, all that hoopla went on. And so then I thought I need a cup of coffee and I sat down, fixed a cup of coffee. The gas company just said, we'll send somebody out there sometime today to look at it. Well, I assumed it would be later.
Yeah, it wasn't.
No, it was within half an hour. So I still was nursing that cup of coffee and
in your robe and
busted
pajamas.
A second time.
What's the moral of the story?
Sleep fully dressed. Sleep fully dressed. Yes, absolutely. So,
yeah. Well, do you sleep better when Neil's gone as far as just sleeping soundly?
I usually never have a problem at all sleeping, whether he's here or not. but it's kind of funny because we have that Ring doorbell. And so Jeremy at the door, I have pictures of him at the door and video, and he looks very serious.
Yeah.
He looks like he looks like he's planning. If she doesn't answer the door, what am I going to do? How am I going to break in? Who am I going to knock out? I mean, he looks like he's like getting ready to take care of business.
Well, I bet that was kind of scary for Neil. I mean, I can kind of understand. I sleep good when John's, well, I don't want to, let's see, how should I say this? I sleep pretty good when he's gone, because he's just a mover, and he shakes and twitches and all that. And so I enjoy the bed to myself, and I sleep pretty soundly. So I was just thinking maybe you were just sleeping really good, because.
Well, I was definitely sleeping soundly. Yeah. When the pounding happened at 6:15.
Yeah. Well, I forgot I was going to mention this earlier about our Zoom last week when we recorded, and why we didn't have video, because halfway into our discussion, I thought I was talking about something. I was just talking away, and I've noticed this about myself. I tend to look away when I'm talking. And so I was looking away, and then I looked back at you, and you're just sitting there with this nice little smile on your face. And I was thinking, is she not going to reply? Is she not going to say anything to me?
Dead air.
And then I noticed she's still smiling at me with the same smile. So I don't know what happened, because the internet was working fine. This was at the house in Denver, but somehow we got disconnected. And I think the same thing happened on your end. You said you were talking and looking like, okay, is she going to say anything?
It did. And ironically, you also had a sweet little smile on your face. It didn't catch either one of us with that, when you're in the middle of a word and your lips kind of,
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's a nice smile, but you held it.
Yeah.
And then you didn't say anything. And I'm like, are you there? Have I lost you? Hello? And I remember dragging out my story.
Yeah.
Because I thought, you must have frozen, and I need to drag out this story until you're back with me. Only you never came back.
Yeah. You're so much better at that than I am. But anyway,
rambling, I'm better at rambling than you are. Is that what you're saying?
I wasn't going to call it rambling, but I mean, if you want to say that.
Dragging out a story. Yeah. Takes a
lot. No, but you're better at extemporaneous speaking than I am. I'm terrible at it, which is evident in my intros. But anyway, just wanted to mention that, because that's why we didn't have video last week. And hopefully the internet and the Zoom will hold on with us here in my house in Dripping Springs. Also, I wanted to tell you about the table that Micah built. Our youngest son.
Talented.
He is. And this is something I had no idea about until he grew up and moved out of the house. Seems like all three of our boys have found these great talents that I wish they would have had when they lived at home. But
you're still benefiting.
I am, as evidenced by what he did. For this was for my birthday, this idea that John had a while back. When we had to redo a lot of things in the house, which I don't know if I've ever talked about on the podcast or not, but when John was sick, when he was in the hospital, halfway through his hospital stay, because all of the kids had been here and we'd been using showers, and I mean, there was 8-9 people with everyone here. And I think that there were some flushable wipes that, by the way, are not really very flushable, especially if you have a septic system.
Oh no.
Anyway, it backed up. And this is a long story, so I'll not even go there.
That's okay.
It led to, everything, all of the floors were affected because it was the central bathroom, and it ran into all of the bedrooms in the back. It ran into the living room. So the bad thing was that it was terrible timing, because John was sick and unable to do anything. And, but yet the insurance paid for all of the floors and repainting just about everything. But how one thing leads to another. And so we ended up putting a new deck on. How did the deck end up from the bathroom flooding over? I don't know exactly, but we didn't have a table for the deck, except for one of my parents' old, a table that they had on their deck for years. It was rusty and old. And so anyway, John had an idea of putting a top on top of that table. And that's what Micah did. And I know I showed it to you sort of through the window, but I took a picture of it. And this is it. You can see it, I know, right now. And I'll post
That's
the picture.
gorgeous.
It is so pretty. And he works at a cabinet shop. That's what he does for a living. He works at a cabinet shop, and it's just down the street. And so anytime we take a notion, usually we can get him to whip something out. And he did that pretty fast. I mean, he did it within a couple of days. But I'm so excited because it'll hold about 10 people. And that's what we used when we had our little family birthday the other night. And we just use our deck a whole lot more now than we did before. It's a lot larger than it used to be, but I'm so excited to have that table. Yeah.
I love your deck. Now he built the shelving unit in your bathroom also, right? That's pretty fancy. I kind of have bathroom envy because I love the tile that y'all chose for your bathroom. And if we ever retile, I thought about asking you, how do you feel about being copycatted?
What is that saying? That imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, right?
Because I'm pretty sure I want that exact same tile.
Yeah, I love that tile. It is fun. Man. Yeah. But that cabinet, yeah, I told him what I wanted. We had a long double sink, but the way it was before, it was just kind of wasted space between it. And so I told him I wanted a cabinet on top of the cabinet top that reached all the way to the ceiling. And so basically he just drew what I wanted and built it. So yeah, it was fabulous. Yeah,
he's very talented. It looks good. It looks good.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, did you know I'm learning Italian?
Ciao.
Well, I don't know that yet. No. Yeah.
Spaghetti.
No, I already
That's
knew
not
those
Italian.
Words. No. Because of our cruise coming up.
Yeah.
In October, we're going to Rome, and we're all Pompeii.
And Ephesus and Athens. I can't remember all the places.
I mean, Italian speaking places. So we've been to Rome, and it's a little bit easy because I know some Spanish, and I think Italian and Spanish are very, very close. So you can kind of pick up on similarities. But you know that app, Duolingo?
Okay.
For your phone?
I've heard of it.
Well, I used to just have Spanish, but now I got rid of that and I put Italian on there so I can try and pick up some conversational Italian or something.
Okay.
At least be able to ask where's the bathroom.
So have you learned that yet?
Essential. No, but I know like very basic vocabulary, like ragazzo is boy and ragazza is girl, and those little non-essential things.
So you can ask the boy where the bathroom is.
That's right. Hey, boy. So anyway, gearing up for that. Yeah. And along those lines, I was going to show you this leather journal. Do you see how pretty it is?
That's beautiful. Audrey Hepburn is all I can see, I believe.
Yeah, there's an Audrey Hepburn quote on the front. But this is from Vivian Grace. She gave me this as a gift, and it's the leather itself is almost a slight blush color. It's very feminine kind of leather, and the pages are just really pretty and textured and everything. But
it's like a great journal.
It was just like a no occasion kind of gift that she gave me, and I thought this will be the perfect travel journal for our cruise and trip to the Holy Lands, and so I'm really excited about that.
I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It'll be.
I mean, it's going to be it's going to be a learning experience.
Yes.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah. Not so much fun.
Just learning.
All serious, no fun.
All
right?
Serious, especially when you and I are together. It's just all serious.
All serious all the time. Definitely.
That's right.
Yeah, that's only about 6-7 months away.
Yes.
And we've been talking about it for more than a year, for almost a year.
I remember when you guys first brought it up, I thought that is forever away.
Yeah. Because it was like a year and a half away.
So
I knew it would be fast. Yeah, it is going to be fun. Well, I wanted to show you that I got a gift also in the mail. And it is this fabulous book, I Walked by His Side.
I love that.
Written by Claudine Connolly. And someone shared it in our group when we shared the book talk episode, and someone brought it up, and I just happened to make the comment, and I have to say I was not hinting at all. Please, I don't ever want anyone to think I was hinting about anything. But I had this copy, and I had probably read it 3 or 4 times. I just was so fascinated with it. I think it's another one of those things that I don't know that I could ever do what she did as far as moving there and living there, which I know y'all talked about for a while.
Which is why I read that book.
Yeah. And I think we had talked about that before. You had brought it up, but I loaned my copy to someone several years ago and never got it back, and really made me sad. So Cheryl McIntosh sent me a copy. And the funny thing was, the same day that she messaged me that she was going to send me a copy, I had another friend that had already found one on eBay and had sent it to me. She asked me not to mention her name. So now I have 2 copies, and I'm just so excited
because you
about
have 2 houses.
Yeah, I'll keep one here, and one, I really will put one in my office there. And I'm thinking about whether or not I will loan it, because bad things happen when I loaned it before, but I also want to be a sharing person. So I don't know. I have to think about that. But that was very, very sweet of Cheryl and my other friend that said that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, such a good story and inspiring. I think things would be a little bit different today with the internet and, just the ease of being able to create useful materials for learning and stuff. But what they had to go through, and especially her as a wife had to go through, and working with him was amazing. And just their good attitude while they did it all. It's a great book. It's a fun read.
It's been so long since I've read it, so I need to get back in it. But there's snake stories that I remember, or ants. There's some kind of an ant infestation that I remember that they had. They huge ants. But I remember one story that she told about one of the men that was part of the school there that thought he was going to have to give his life for Andrew, and I can't remember all the details about it. He was giving blood, I think, but he thought that in giving his blood, he would die. He didn't understand that it was just a simple procedure.
Is that
you remember
that book? I remember hearing that as a sermon illustration. I didn't, but I've read that book, so maybe that's where I picked it up.
I'm gonna have to go back and read it again. I can't wait to get into it. But anyway. You have anything else you want to cover?
Yeah, I do. I feel like
okay.
we're talking about all these things before we even get into our topic, but we haven't talked in a million years.
I know.
So I have another thing to show. Look how pretty this book is.
Oh, that's beautiful. Is that like foil, that gold foil stuff on there?
and the gold binding on the pages and the ribbon. So I got another literary book club box.
Oh, that's fun.
While Neil was out of town, it showed up on my front porch, and I was so excited because I didn't know I was going to get another one so soon. And when I shared about this before, it seemed to get a lot of interest from the ladies. So I feel like I'm bragging a little bit, like, ooh, look what I got. But
this was part of your gift, right? Was it a year's subscription?
Yeah, it's a subscription. Okay. I think it's supposed to come once a quarter, but it doesn't seem like it's already. I know it hasn't been that long because we've only been doing, this is our 10th episode. And I had just gotten the last one before we started recording, right?
Well, that was 10 weeks ago. So it's once a quarter, right?
I guess I think every 3 months is what was stuck in my head. But anyway, the last one, the color scheme was kind of rose and cream. And this one is this navy and copper and cream. And so everything in there, navy, velvet, bags for the gifts, or lots of ribbon, and I mean it's just all you just feast on it with your eyes first thing when you open it up. And I feel like I was trying to explain it to Neil, and I was like, I just kept saying beautiful over and over again. It's just so beautiful. It's just so beautiful. And I don't know that I would have ever chosen to read Peter Pan. But now I will, because I have presents to open when I get to certain pages. But Dale and Janelle came over the other night, and it was just right after I had gotten this. So I was showing it to her, and we brought up that subject again about doing it for the Bible. Yeah. And we started brainstorming about different things that you could tuck in there and that would work. And I'm telling you, it did not take long before we came up with quite the list. So we may seriously consider doing something like that.
Oh, fun. I bet there was a little bit of laughter when y'all were doing that too.
There is quite a bit.
I can just imagine some of Dale's ideas.
Yeah.
That would be so cool. What book of the Bible were y'all talking about? Doing that for the whole Bible?
The whole Bible. And we were, like, we mentioned some things in Romans, and we thought it'd be funny if we start out with Philemon, because you're supposed to open gifts when you get to certain verses, and it'd be like, well,
one
that
chapter
subscription
book.
box was over in 10 minutes.
See, I'd be tempted to open all the gifts all at once. I don't know if I could wait till I got to page whatever.
I bet you wouldn't. I bet you would do it right.
No, I don't know.
That might play into our topic today,
I know. Huh? In fact, I was thinking
Is that a segue?
Well, are you finished with your things?
Probably. Let me check my list. I wrote down all these things. No, I got one more thing to say.
Okay. All right. Spill it.
So I got to spend an evening with Emily and our sweet little baby Rich. Yes. One night, and Neil was at a meeting and Carl was at a Bible study, and she said, this is how she said it. Rich and I want to know if you'll come over and spend an evening with us. I just melted.
And I'm sure that you had to think about it for 0.2 seconds.
Yeah. And then the next day she said, and what if I find a fun new recipe to try for us to cook together while you're here? So I was like, she knows my love language. Like, she's just so sweet.
And if you can hold Rich while she does the cooking.
Oh man. So I went over there and we made chicken Florentine together. It was really good. And she made this tea that I've been making every day since. And all she did, she made regular unsweet tea, iced tea. And then, that Simply brand of juice, like they do Simply orange juice, Simply lemonade. Well, they have a Simply peach. And all she did was pour that into regular tea. And it was so good. It wasn't overly sweet. It was just softly scented peach tea. And I've been drinking
that would be good with lemonade.
Yeah, it would.
Kind of like an Arnold Palmer.
Yeah. So anyway, that was a special night.
What a sweet thing for her to do, and just to give you some one-on-one time with her. And
I know. I really melted. I almost said literally, but it wasn't literally. But I just melted into a puddle when I got the invitation. Like, yes.
That is very special. It doesn't happen very often.
That also reminds me, we have news.
What?
We have news for our looking up, not about more kids or
more babies.
Yes. We have t-shirts now.
We do.
Yes. We have t-shirts now. Emily's going to share the information. She sent me a picture of them yesterday. They look great.
Awesome.
So I think she said sometime today she's going to try and get the information out there. If anybody wants a t-shirt, they can order. And she said that we could have some extras to keep on hand at Equipped.
Yeah.
If they want to come by and get a shirt while they're there. Yeah. So,
Well, I'm excited. What color are they? Or is she going to do different colors?
It looks like in the picture that they're kind of a soft, it's really kind of hard to tell if they're kind of a soft blue or a soft green or kind of a mix of those colors. Maybe a soft blue.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to tell in the picture.
And it's going to have the square.
Yeah, it just has the square looking up logo on it.
Is it going to have fat on it?
No. Oh, no.
Let's look a little closer.
I hope I sent her the right graphic.
I need to make some little pins that say fat.
That's right.
Have fat real faintly on there. That will live in infamy. I think I will never live that down.
IYK, if you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
Yeah. IYK.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Well, cool.
Okay, I think I'm done with all my intro palavering now.
Palavering. You're using all kinds of big words today.
That's the word I accuse Neil of, when sometimes before his sermon, he doesn't just get into a sermon. He talks about all these things ahead of time. And then he'll say, how was my sermon? And I'm like, well, except for all that palavering you did on the front end.
I bet people enjoy it though.
They do. He's good. Okay. He's good at it.
Yeah. Well, today we thought we would talk about something kind of fun, but I know that we have some spiritual emphasis on it too, but mostly it's just a fun thing. And it's the Enneagram. And I know that there have been some that aren't too fond of it, but that's part of what we want to talk about as far as the spiritual emphasis. But the Enneagram is just a kind of a personality test. And based on what they have said, and I say they, I don't know who it is and how long it's been around, but there's 9 different personality types. And you can easily Google it and find out what all of them are. But they say that everyone fits into one of these 9 personality types. Of course, I think we'll get to you, and you fit into several, more than one. But it's just interesting to see how, like me, I think they pretty much nailed me as far as strengths and weaknesses. But when you look at the different websites, there's one, I think it's just called the Enneagram Institute, and there's another one called truity.com. And you can, I think it's just very helpful because you can find out some weaknesses that you have and how you can address them and what your strengths are. And I just think in a way it has helped me kind of in a black and white sense to see. Whereas if John said, you have this weakness, I'd be like, what are you talking about? That is not my weakness. Me. Yeah. What's your weakness? But yet when you see on a page, you've taken this test and then it comes out with this result and you're going, oh, yeah.
And if everything else is accurate about you on the positive side, perhaps it's also accurate about you on the weaknesses or negative side, areas of growth, as they like to put it.
Yeah. And it's true. And I think that it really has kind of helped me to grow, because I laugh about some of them, but at the same time, I really do think that they're true. And the thing about it is, as far as biblically speaking, I think if we know some of our weaknesses, we can address them. But at the same time, I think that there's a difference between personality and character. And personality is something that you can't necessarily change about yourself, but character is something that you have to change about yourself if it doesn't align with the way that God wants you to be. But like my personality, there's some things about me, like I'm not very excitable as far as, like I want to be, but if I turned a cartwheel, John he's like, if you tell him something exciting, he's going to just be all excited and, you'll see it all over his face. And I just think it's a neat thing about people who are excitable. And you know me. And if there's something that I think is really neat, I'm going to be pleasant, but I don't think that I'm going to be like, I can't wait to hear more about it, even though I want to be. But you know what I mean? That's my personality.
Yes.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with me being that way. It's just the way that God made me. But
can I interrupt you for a second?
Okay. I'm a little afraid of what you're going to say because you've been giggling.
Well, that's because when you said that, my first thought went to when you guys first started living part-time in Denver, and we were at Bear Valley. And one of the first times you walked into that church building and I saw you, I was so excited. And I think I squealed. And I think I just ran up to you and I was like, ah! And I just gave you a big hug. And I was like, oh, I just can't believe you're here. And you had this really demure, how do you say that word?
Demure
smile on your face. And you just kind of stood there and you did a little smile and you're like, hey, and I'm like, in the middle of a hug going, oh.
But see, I want to be that way.
And I remember thinking, oh, she probably thinks I'm so immature.
No,
she probably thinks I'm like obnoxious. Get out of my face.
Because I want to be that way, but I don't feel normal or natural doing that. And I can't make myself.
Different ways of showing your excitement. I know that about you now, but
yeah.
I just remember that moment.
I don't remember that. I don't remember that. I do, but I do remember when we first got there, when you had been redoing the little house, and we first walked in, and the last time I had seen that place, it was a bunch of offices and it was basically storage. And so that was in September, and we came back in January, and you had arranged, you had put all of these people to work and got everything. You turned it into a home. And I think I remember walking in, and one thing you couldn't wait to show me was that faucet. You remember that? The faucet that lit up.
Yeah.
But in a situation like that, I want for people to understand how excited I am, but I don't think it comes across that, because it's just not in my personality to be real excitable. But I was so excited and just so happy about that. And I hope that I think you were able to see that. But
yes, you just, like I said, you just show it in a different way. And you're also very deliberate with your speech, I think. And so if you say something, it's because you've thought about it and you mean it. And so when you say, oh, I like that, thank you,
Mhm.
or whatever it is that you say, you might not be jumping up and down, but it's heartfelt. So I don't think
Yeah.
anybody ever has to, wonder if you're excited or appreciative or anything like that.
But you know that about me because you know me. So I'm conscious of that. I think my mom told me when I was pretty young that she said, you can read on my face what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have grown to try to be conscious of what my face might be saying from my head. What is that saying? Oh, I'm really sorry that my face said what I was thinking. But that's kind of part of why I wanted for us to talk about this, because there's I don't think that there's ever a time that we should just say that's just the way that I am when it comes to a character issue. And there was some things that I was thinking about, like being cynical or being sarcastic or pessimism, things like that. I think that they do kind of come naturally to me, or they have. And I've really worked on not being that way, because I don't want to be that way, because I don't think that God wants me to be that way. I've heard a lot of people say before, I just tell it like it is. And, is that really a way that we should be? Because if our words are to be full of grace and seasoned with salt, then I don't think that we're just going to say everything that, take pride in whatever is in my mind comes out my mouth. Because I just believe that that's anti-biblical. And, things like being doubtful and distrustful, or being challenging everything that someone says because we disagree. So I was just trying to think of some different character versus personality things. A personality, tell me what you think. Being gullible or trusting, that's kind of a personality thing, don't you think?
Yes.
Because you either are or you aren't. What about someone who processes internally as opposed to processing out loud? That's kind of a personality thing, right?
Yes.
And
that's Neil and me.
Yeah, me and John too. Which one are
reversed. Yeah, process internally.
You process internally and he does out loud. Yeah, me too. I process internally. What about being glass half full or half empty? Is that personality or character?
I think it's personality.
I think so too. But I think
it can be a tendency.
Right. But I think we can train ourselves to see positives. Someone that has few words and someone who has many words. That's both too, I think. I think they a lot of times bleed into each other. Someone this is you and me. You're more adventurous and I'm more of a play it safe kind of person. But I think that's personality. And look, we're such good friends, but yet we're different on a lot of things like this. Someone who doesn't mind having attention on them versus someone who does not want to have any attention. And I think that's a personality issue.
Also,
but what about
me?
Yeah. Well, I don't think of you as someone who seeks attention, but you don't mind.
I like it when people sing happy birthday to me at the restaurant.
Yeah, and I don't. Well, if it's just my family, okay, but if it's in the middle of a restaurant where everybody's like turning like it, yeah, no, I don't like that. And then people who are prideful or humble. Now that's a character issue rather than a personality issue, right? So anyway, those were just some of the things that I was thinking about as far as personality versus character, which led me to thinking about the Enneagram. And so we all four of us, you and me and John and Neil, all took the kind of a simple Enneagram test. And so what did you find out about yourself?
Well,
do you want to share your multiple personalities?
Yeah, thanks. I kept getting different answers. And so I think I'm just a horrible test taker when it comes to being honest about myself, I guess. I read all the little tips that they gave you also, because I took it a while back when a friend of mine did it for me. Like she was asking me the questions and when I took it, then it said I was a number 1, which is either called the perfectionist or the reformer, whichever test you're taking. And then this time when I took it, it said I was a number 3. which is the performer or the achiever. Is that
Achiever?
Achiever.
Uh-huh.
But then when I was reading about it, it just didn't seem, there were some things that kind of seemed like me, but a lot of it did not. I mean, like completely did not. And I even read it out loud to Neil, and he said, that sounds more like me. And I was thinking the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then I went to a different site, and they had a couple of different tests, a long one and a short one. And I took both of them, and they both gave me two different answers with two different wings. So,
Yeah.
your secondary
Mm-hmm.
trait or type or whatever. And so I really think that I'm not good at taking this test, but of all of the ones that I could be and that I've read through, I think the number one, I don't really want to be a number one, but I think it probably is the most accurate when I look through and read about the positive and negative traits. Or one thing that I read that is, if you're not sure and you get different answers, go to your fears and what motivates you.
Mm-hmm.
And see which one closely aligns, and
Mm-hmm.
number one does with that too. So I think that's what it is.
This is what I think this came from the Enneagram Institute. Type 1. Ones place a lot of emphasis on following the rules. Do you think that of yourself?
Yes.
And doing things correctly. I know that you want to do things correctly. Type 1's fear being imperfect can be strict with themselves. You think that?
Yes.
But again, and see, you have that look on your face like it's a bad thing.
Well, who wants that for a friend?
But here's the point, though, because when I look at that, and I've read some more on it, and I see all of the good things about ones in you, but if any of the weaknesses of a one, I don't see that in you, because again, I think that you have done what you're supposed to do as far as aligning your character with what God wants you to be.
Well, and in some ways that made it hard to take this test, because this particular test, you know how, well, actually, I can't remember if that was the first one that you sent me or another one, but one of the ones I took had two statements side by side, and you just picked the one that was more true.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes they were both very negative things in response to another person.
Right.
And I'm looking at both of those statements and thinking, I wouldn't do either one of those things.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I would pick the one that I thought might be more true. But I think that's because, as a Christian, you're trying to think about, what would Jesus do? What does Christian character look like? What does the fruit of the Spirit look like? And maybe that makes it harder to say, at my base nature somewhere, would I be more likely to do these things if I'm a number one? Or, it's just kind of hard to strip away what you should do,
mm-hmm.
or what you hope to be, or what you hope to achieve, and answer it flat out honestly. And I felt like sometimes I was thinking, I hope this isn't true, but it probably is, so I'll check this one.
Yeah. Well, there's a difference between what your gut says you want to do and what you would do.
Yeah. True. Yeah. And then there were some questions that I thought, oh, for sure, this one's easy. This one is a no duh question, but there were a lot of them that I really didn't know. And Neil was a number 3 when he took the test, and that didn't surprise either one of us, because we were reading about it, and it was him all the way.
Yeah.
And so I think if it was,
I thought you were going to be a 3. I thought
did?
You were going to be a 3, and maybe a 2. Yeah. 2 or 3 is what I thought you were going to be.
Interesting.
Well, so let me give an overview of what they say. This is Enneagram. No, this is Truity.com.
Okay.
There are 3 different types of the 9 different types. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But there's a heart type, a head type, and a body type. So the heart type depend on their emotional intelligence to understand their own reactions and connect with others. A head type depend on their intellectual intelligence to make sense of things and navigate the world around them. And then a body type, I thought this was kind of funny, depends on their instinctual intelligence to follow their gut and respond to threats and opportunities. Okay, so these are the heart types. Wait, I took screenshots of these. The heart type is type 2, type 3, and type 4. Twos want to be liked and find ways that they can be helpful to others so that they belong. And their fear is being unlovable. And of course, this is a teeny tiny little short synopsis. A type 3 is an achiever. They want to be successful and admired by other people, are very conscious of their public image. Type 3s fear failure and not being seen as valuable by other people. At least I'm trying to find little small snippets rather than reading the whole things. And like I said, anyone can go read about them.
Yeah.
And then type 4 is the individualist. They want to be unique and experience deep, authentic emotions. Their fear is to be flawed, and they are overly focused on how they are different from other people. So I think they want to be different from other people, supposedly. Type 5, these are the head types, I believe. The investigator, this is 5, the investigator. They seek understanding and knowledge and are more comfortable with data than other people. The biggest fear of this type is being overwhelmed by their own needs or the needs of others. So this is probably someone who prefers being alone with a book. And I can relate to that sometimes. I can relate to all of them in some ways. Type 6 is called the skeptic. Preoccupied with security, they seek safety. They like to be prepared for problems. Their greatest fear is being unprepared and unable to defend themselves from danger. Type 7 is the enthusiast, and they want to have fun and adventure. They're easily bored. Type 7's fear experiencing emotional pain, especially sadness, and they actively seek to avoid it by staying busy. Okay, the body types this is type 8, the challenger. 8s see themselves as strong and powerful and seek to stand up for what they believe in. The greatest fear of that type 8 is to be powerless, so they focus on controlling their environment. Then type 9 is the peacemaker. 9s like to go with the flow and let the people around them set the agenda. Type 9s fear pushing people away by prioritizing their own needs, and they tend to be passive. Type 1 is also the head type. No, did I say that wrong?
I think body type.
Body type. Yeah. Type 1, the perfectionist. Ones place a lot of emphasis on following the rules and doing things correctly. Type 1s fear being imperfect and can be extremely strict with themselves and others. So you could find other synopsis and read more about it online, but I just think it's very interesting to see. I'm a 9 is what, and I've taken that several times, and every time I come up with a 9. And
that completely surprised me, by the way.
It's funny because my daughter-in-law, she has enjoyed looking into this some, and she pegged me as that a long time ago as a 9. But it's funny, when I read about it the first time, one of the things that stood out to me was that I do not like to make decisions. That's what they say. You don't push 9s to make decisions, which is one of those things that, should I be that way? I mean, should I be so passive as to not be able to state my opinion? Do I like to say where I want to go eat? No, you just tell me where I'm going to go and I'll go. So I tend to be pretty passive. And then John is a 3. So John and Neil were the same, and he was 100. He took the test and he was 100% a 3. And I was like 72% as far as what test the one that I took. So, all
Neil
of that
was 80 something percent.
Yeah.
3.
Yeah. But there's another personality test called the TJTA. It's the Taylor Johnson Temperament Analysis. And this is something that John, anytime we do premarital or any type of marital counseling, he gives this test. He had to be trained, and I don't think licensed is the right word. He's trained, and he can give it. I guess he's licensed. But what it does, it's like 160 questions. So it's a long test, and it measures what they call bipolar traits. And one of them, like one bipolar, which you tend to think of being bipolar, but it just means from one extreme to the other.
Right.
Either you're nervous or you're composed, or you're somewhere in between, or you think subjectively or you think objectively, or you're somewhere in between. You're depressive or you're lighthearted, you're dominant, you're submissive. So it just is always a helpful springboard for discussion to for couples to talk about how they interact. So you said something about did you look into relationship between your type and Neil's type?
I did, because you can do that. And when I read that, Neil and I together, a 1 and a 3, I actually sent it to him, and I said, this is so us. And the strengths, of course, you hope that your relationship with your husband will be that way, and you'll complement each other and bring out the best in each other. But then I was reading in conflict, or how do they word that part where when you're having a negative reaction with each other. I read through that and I was like, well, that's like somebody's been peeking into our living room. It was just us, that definitely fits. And it was so helpful, because I thought it wasn't, some of the personality tests that I'm familiar with are that one that goes way back, and it has the 4 personality types, choleric and sanguine and melancholy and all that kind of stuff. And they tell you what motivates you and your personalities, and that whether or not you're slow to burn or quick to get angry and all those kinds of things. But the difference is, this one tells you how it comes across to the other person, I think. And so that was really helpful to read from Neil's perspective as a 3, how he interprets how I'm approaching him as a 1, and some of the ways that I react or lead a conversation, or my expectations, and how he interprets that. It was so helpful to read that. But when I did, it was very enlightening, and a lot of that I didn't really care for, but I thought, I'm so glad that I read this, and can keep that in mind going forward. And so with you and John being a 9 and a 3, I think I read yours too, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It's potential trouble spots. That's how they put it. Potential trouble spots or issues. It says that it tells me things that I don't really want to hear. But when I looked at it, I was like, oh, yeah, that's pretty true. Neither wants to bring up conflicts that they have with the other. 9s are more likely not to want to talk about whatever's bothering them for fear of further endangering the relationship. And that's not so much that I'm worried about the relationship, but it takes too much emotional energy sometimes. And it's easier just to leave it alone. I don't want to talk about it right now. And there's a lot of times we will talk about John being the type that wants to address everything right away. If there's a conflict of any kind, he wants it to be settled right then. And he's such a talented talker and communicator. And I have to think about things, and I can't get out from my head, out my mouth, what I'm thinking, especially if he's just talking and talking and talking, and he processes out loud,
Right.
And so I feel like I'm just listening, and I can't even figure out what it is that I'm upset about. And so I'm needing to process alone and not have him talking to me. So I really need to step out, for a couple hours. And we laugh about this now, but it was troublesome early on in our marriage, because he felt like, don't let the sun go down on your anger. And I felt like it was just kind of you just want to figure out what's wrong so you can go to sleep. And I just need some time to think about it. And so we figured out that if we just had a little bit of time, just were able to say, okay, I'm going to go outside and sit on the deck for an hour and think about what's wrong. And then at 9:00, can we talk about this? And it seems kind of silly.
No, that's
not
smart.
not silly, but it seems strange maybe to make a date to work out your conflict, but it really is a much better way, because you've both calmed down by then, and you've thought about it, and you realize you're intentional about trying to figure out what's wrong so you can resolve the conflict, rather than it just escalating harder and worse. So to me, something like that, when you read that in black and white, you're like, oh, and then you can share it. I could share it with John and say, this is how I feel. So in a way, I think that's what's helpful about these kind of personality tests. And there's more, that I won't go into, but you can look it up. But even you and I, when I was looking at the friendship, I typed in friendship between 3s, 1s, and 9s. And it comes up with relationships. So it's a little bit, more like a marriage. But I thought, I read the first part, about how, let's see, we're both able to delay rewards for long-term good that we seek.
Mm-hmm.
It says 1s, this would be you bring clarity and rationality and the ability to articulate ideals and understandings. And I think that's very true, that you're so much better at that than I am, as far as clarity and rationality.
I don't feel that way, but thank you.
And that you're working to improve yourself and your environment. You're conscientious, have high ethical, moral standards. You're fair and consistent. And then it says 9s bring a gentle, accepting quality that nurtures and supports. So it's a give and take kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I was thinking biblically, there's so many things about our character that Colossians 3, we always go back to Colossians 3, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many good practical things in there. Keep seeking the things above. What all in here is our character, the things that we're to consider ourselves dead to: immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, greed. All of those are character issues that people have. Mm-hmm. And those may be on the extreme, but what about anger? Mm-hmm. We all have issues with anger. Slander is something that we don't think we're guilty of, but someone that likes to gossip and talk, and that's slander. Mm-hmm. And that's
paint
not
somebody else in a bad light.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But put on a heart of compassion and kindness and humility and gentleness. They may not come naturally to someone. They may not think they have the personality for that, but yet this is what God tells us to be like. So even if you don't think it comes naturally, you need to work on it. You know what I mean?
Several years ago, and I probably should have asked her permission before I bring this up on the podcast here, but my sister struggled with depression for a while. And I don't think she would mind me sharing it because
she's open about it.
She's open about it. She's written about it. A really great article, by the way, which I can share the link to in the show notes, even though it doesn't really have to do with our topic.
No, I think it's great.
But she even started a group, like a support group for people who have struggled with that and things like that. But one time I remember her saying or writing that just because you know this about you and that you're here in this place, she was specifically talking about depression when you're just in the throes of it and you're in a dark place and you're having a hard time being around people. You're having a hard time wanting to relate to others or give of yourself or function or whatever it might be. Knowing that about yourself does not excuse you from continuing to do what you're supposed to do as a Christian. And she was talking about how you might not feel like going to worship, but you should, and I'm sure there was more to it. That just kind of sticks out in my mind, but it kind of makes me think about this, what we're talking about. We learn things about ourselves. We learn what might be our weaknesses that we've had a hard time acknowledging or seeing, or at least owning up to. But we have to be careful not to say, like you mentioned, that's just how I am. Now I see why I struggle with this so much, because that's how God made me. That's my innate personality and character. And so I can't help who I am. It is, I am who I am, or it is what it is, or, and that's not good. And it might be true that all of those things that you mentioned, we might have a tendency toward negativity or pessimism or sarcasm, or we might have a gift for those things.
Yeah.
But that doesn't excuse behavior and choices, and it doesn't give us a free pass, a get out of jail free card. It doesn't mean that we don't strive to overcome those things and become more like Christ by pushing aside those things to put on the fruit of the Spirit, things like patience and compassion and joy and all of those types of things. But as interesting as this is, in some ways, knowing ourselves, it can be tempting to kind of give into that and go, oh, well, that's why I have a hard time with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how I am.
Yeah.
And the challenge is, no, I think I told you when we first brought this up a while back, you mentioned it. I had to look into it because I hadn't really spent a lot of time with it. But it was really interesting that somebody was explaining that the whole point of this is to show us areas to grow in. And it's not because I found out I'm a number one. This is who I am. Where are my people?
Yeah.
The whole point of it is an outward others focus. Because I'm a number one, that means I need to work harder to understand the numbers 2 through 9.
Mm-hmm.
And in those areas, I might not be as strong in those character and personality traits. And I'm going to need to grow in that and branch out in that. And so I can relate better to everybody else and understand them and give them grace and patience. And the whole point of it was so we can come outside of ourselves and do better at loving the people around us that are different. And I think that's kind of great too. You and John are different. Neil and me are different. And so while that can create friction, we also complement each other because we're different. And it makes me think of that verse about the body, the church, we're all different. There's the hand and there's the foot, and we all have different functions, and our different strengths can help us to have tendencies in different areas, but we all work together and create the perfect bride of Christ, the perfect body. And those same differences can create friction in the body if we're not careful. But overall, we meet each other halfway, and we fulfill those differences, like my friendship with you, which, by the way, I never would have pegged you for a 9. I thought for sure you were a 2. And I kind of want to, you know yourself, and you've taken it multiple times, and apparently your daughter-in-law knows you better than I do, whatever. But I kind of wanted to say, are you sure? I feel like you should go back and read type 2 because type 2 is the giver. And I went through and read because I thought, no, that Carla's wrong. Let me take that test for you. I went back through and read it, and it's like describing you. And even that one gives very specific things. This is going to be the one that wants to find very practical ways to help. And I've always admired that about you. Like, you have an ability to come up with that. Here's a very practical need in the moment for a family that just had a baby or just moved or just experienced loss or whatever. And I've always been so intrigued by your ability to do that. Like, how did you come up with that? How did you think about that? And it specifically mentioned cooking for people and taking it to them. You do that all the time. Pizza rolls for the students. You have fed my boys. I just think about you just show up with a pan of pizza rolls or whatever. And they were all these specific instances. And I was like, that's Carla Moore. That's Carla Moore. That's Carla Moore. And then you tell me you're a 9.
Well, I had the little blob that we talked about earlier that showed, which areas. And that was one of the tendencies that I had. And I wanted to say, praise me while you were saying that, but I won't. But yeah, type 9 to me, this is me. Accepting, trusting, and stable. These are all the good things about a 9. I don't have to read all the bad things, but I might. I think I'm pretty optimistic and supportive, but can be too willing to go along with others to keep the peace. And I've seen this with myself. You and I became friends later in life. We were middle-aged, more or less, but young middle-aged. But when I look back on some of my earlier friendships, I remember one in particular where I was very, I absorbed all of the things that she liked. And when I look back on it, I think I looked at something and I thought, would she like this? If she'd like it, I'm going to like it. And there were just so many things about our friendship, and she was a good friend. It wasn't anything about her, but she had a very strong personality, and I kind of measured my wants and needs and desires and likes and dislikes through her. And only after I got away from that did I realize it almost felt like this weight had been lifted, that I could have my own opinion, and I can like something that even if she doesn't like it. And so it was very, very eye-opening. And I think after that relationship, I started realizing I can't just keep the peace by absorbing someone else's personality, but I don't have to be obnoxious about it if I don't like something that they like. It's just different. But I noticed that about myself. I want things to go smoothly, be without conflict. And that brings up something else to me. When I think about sharing truth, I fully realize about myself that I would much rather there be a very peaceful way of sharing the truth. But I'm also fully aware that sometimes you can't do that. And I'm not comfortable with that side. There has to be conflict sometimes. Jesus said, I didn't come to bring peace, although we know.
But a sword.
Yeah, but a sword.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, he came to bring peace. But sometimes you have to use a sword, and not just in the sense of the sword of the spirit, but I think these personality types, like you were just talking about a minute ago, you're not just learning about yourself. You're learning that there are other types of people, and that not everyone thinks like you think. That's pretty revolutionary when you realize that as an adult. You kind of grow up thinking that everybody thinks like I think. And when you realize that not everyone thinks like I think, it's wow. Okay. So that means that someone else needs to hear truth in a different way than I hear it. That doesn't mean that I don't speak words of grace and with seasoned with salt. But my friend Alice Stone is one of my dearest friends, and she has always said she needs someone to slap her with truth. And she pretty much will use those words. And that's how she came to learn the truth. I don't want that. If someone slapped me with truth, that would be very off-putting to me. So I think Alice, more than anyone else, helped me to realize that different people need to hear things differently. And we have to figure out what works best for them. And also that different people are going to show up to be able to do that. I may not be the one to teach her, because I wouldn't be able to slap her with truth. So I think you're so right that these kind of tests help us to not just be internal, but to look externally and look outside and see how we can communicate better with other people, and how we can share things with other people. So,
well, on your list in the number 9, I went through and looked at the weaknesses or areas for growth when you said that's who you were. And I was still convinced that you were wrong, but it probably goes back to what you brought up, that, in Christ, we're trying to put on Christ and look like Christ, and recognizing those traits, I probably won't see them. And except in very rare moments. And honestly, I'm just saying that because you're human. I can't actually think of one. But maybe John has seen them, and people who have lived with you or been closer to you have seen them. But for the friend that, thinks that she knows you, I haven't seen those things. But I know it's because you're clothed with Christ and you're trying to be like Christ. And with his strength, that's the blessing that we have, is being able to overcome some of those things and work on those things and have those moments be fewer and farther between, Lord willing.
Well, and the same thing, and yes, like Lord you willing. And I were talking about this earlier, because I guess you would rather not be a 1. But all of the things that I read too, that were the weaknesses, I don't see those in you. Like, yourself, like we were talking about earlier, just between us, there's, how do you answer the questions on these tests? Is it a gut thing? You just answer it with your gut, how you would really like to respond. Or is there a way that you actually would respond because you are a Christian? And I think that's hopefully where we are, and always room for growth still. But, I think that both of us have experienced growth, because we have, and we're not bragging on ourselves in any stretch, because both of us, we both know the weaknesses that we have, and those that are in our hearts and only our heads that only we know about. But I also have thought so many times that if you haven't changed, speaking you generally,
Right.
if you generally have not changed since you've been an adult and grown, then you're not doing what a Christian should do. You're not being like Christ. You're not growing. Mm-hmm. So I think that we have to see growth and change in ourselves.
Yeah. And I think that different circumstances bring out those different weaknesses too. And what you might experience as a weakness when you have young children at home might be different than, maybe it's impatience or, whatever. It might be different than when you're living the empty nest. And what might be your weaknesses that you have to work on. It's not that we ever conquer and there's not room for improvement and growth. Each day is a new day in the walk. But sometimes different circumstances help us see those things. We might read about, with a test like this, what are your weaknesses? And some of them you go, yeah, unfortunately, very true. Hit the nail on the head. And then some of them you think, well, I hope that's not true. But it might be. It may be when a certain circumstance or event or tragedy or whatever happens, it might be exposed, and just knowing about it ahead of time can be helpful. And I feel like I'm very late to the party here because I didn't really pay a lot of attention to this. And I've seen people post about it. I think it's Anna Maynard down at Spanish Fort. She posts a lot of memes and things, or has in the past posted memes and things on Instagram about her types. And I've never really paid attention to it because I don't know them. I didn't know them all. I didn't know the numbers. I never took the test, and so I'm a little late to the party, but I can see the value in it and helping you look for areas to be on guard against. And one of the conversations that we had not too long ago, maybe it was our last one. That was a long time ago.
It was 10 days ago.
Was it? Yeah. When you said about the feeling sorry for yourself, if you know ahead of time that you have that tendency, then you can work on it. You can pray about it. You can start arming yourself with those spiritual things and verses that are going to help you with that. And to me, that's the value here is you get an opportunity to I don't think they're 100% accurate and full.
Right. Sure.
But maybe you get a glimpse into some of those things that you hadn't recognized or weren't willing to recognize. And so it gives you an opportunity to work on them and pray about them and catch them when they start to rear its ugly head and you're going, oh, maybe that's what that was talking about. I should probably work on that.
Yeah. But to me, one of the things this was several years ago, before I even heard of Enneagram, was realizing that there's a difference between personality and character, and trying to think about your personality. Is that really a personality trait or is that a character issue? And so that to me is biblical and scriptural and something that we should think about. So
I saw this post the other day by Shay Elliott, who's Homemaker Chic, and the Elliott Homestead, and she was talking about cleaning up her home for spring, and then she shared a picture of a little corner shelf, and it wasn't as beautiful as everything else. And she said, I still have this gremlin corner that I haven't figured out what to do with. And I thought that is just the perfect term. I feel like we all still kind of wrestle with these gremlin corners in our own lives, or those character things that we know they don't look the way they should. Yeah. We haven't quite figured out how to arrange it in such a way that is aesthetically pleasing or the way it should be. And we still wrestle with these gremlin corners, maybe internally with our personalities. And but I'm thankful for God's grace and good friends that extend grace when they see that part of your house or your character. They get a little peek into your gremlin corners.
Yeah. And love you anyway.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, we probably should wrap this up because it's getting. How long have we been talking?
Probably about an hour 20.
Okay. Yeah. So we took a poll this week and asked people what they thought if we were talking too much or not talking enough or talking just right. And it seemed like most people said that they were okay with how long we talked, but we don't want to go so long that we chase people off. So
yeah, we keep breaking our own records as far as length goes.
And considering that we talk for an hour or more before we even start recording. But I mean, we don't see each other all that often. And so we're just having fun talking. And we hope that that all of you who are joining us are enjoying the things that we're talking about. We love hearing from you. And I'm sure that there will be a lot of things that we'll post this coming week after the episode airs that we've talked about today, maybe some links to some tests. And we'd be interested in hearing what personality types all of you are.
Yeah.
And do you have anything else that you wanted to talk about before we talk about our random question?
I was about to apologize to those who weighed in the poll that wanted it to be shorter, but they wouldn't have listened this long anyway. So
true. Yeah.
I don't need to.
It's too late. It's too late for them.
They gave up about 40 minutes ago.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's okay. All right. So for our random question this week, what we decided that we would ask each other is, what is the best Tom Hanks movie? You go first.
Okay. You've Got Mail.
You've Got Mail. That's way at the top. Yep.
Yeah. Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan, and cute little bookshop. You know, everything about it is just sweet. And I love that it's a remake of an older movie. Have you seen the
No, I've never seen the old one. Had you?
It's the
Shop Around the Corner.
Yeah, Shop Around the Corner. It's like 1940 something or whatever, but that one's Jimmy Stewart. Oh, and so it's
another great actor.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a very sweet one. And
great music.
Great music. Yeah. Great vibes all around. I love anything that has to do with the bookstore though. So that was an easy one for me. Yeah. What's yours?
Oh, it's a tough one. You know, there's just too many, and I had to kind of Google and figure out, can I have my top three?
No.
You know, the great thing about Tom Hanks as an actor, though, he can portray different actors and you believe that he's that different person. You know, there's some actors, and
one note.
I'm sorry if you like Tom Cruise, and there's some things that he's been in that I think are okay, but he's Tom Cruise in every movie. He's just the same actor in every movie.
He's one note. Yeah.
But
it's
Tom
a good
Hanks,
note, but
I won't ask where you were going with that, but
strike that.
No, it's already on here. But Tom Hanks, you know, think about what he's been able to do, like in Castaway. So that's not my favorite, but that he was the only actor basically in that whole movie, and he carried the whole movie. Yeah, other than the actor Wilson. But you know, that was a great one. I don't know. I have to. Sleepless in Seattle is another one that's great, along with You've Got Mail, as far as the music, and that was Meg Ryan too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say also Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan.
Yeah, and I think they've also done another one together. I don't remember the name of it, but that one was very sweet, and so that would be one of my top three. But I don't know. Bridge of Spies. Did you ever see that one? That was about the Cold War, and he was basically an insurance guy, and I won't spoil it for anyone, plus I can't remember all the details about it, but he was just an ordinary man who defended someone who was accused of being a spy and was taken prisoner and put in jail here in America, and he had to defend him. And of course, during the Cold War, it was kind of the way, at least anyway, I see it. If you were accused of it, you were as good as guilty. You know, there was such a automatic accusation that was believed about anybody in the Cold War. So he defended this guy, and it was just a really suspenseful, but yet it was just a good movie. I really liked Bridge of Spies. I also liked Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I thought he did a really good Mr. Rogers.
I didn't.
Did you see that one?
No.
Okay, well, you have to see that. And Sully was a good one.
You're naming all of them.
I'm sorry, I couldn't pick one.
Amy Alfred.
Yeah, I couldn't pick one.
The random question was
okay.
Which Tom Hanks movie was your favorite?
Favorites. Oh, favorite. I thought we said favorites. Are you gonna say that in Italian?
So favorita. Favorita. That's how you say it.
You have to add an E or an A on the end of every word, and you have to do
use
this.
those gestures. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is Sleepless in Seattle your favorite then? Horses.
If you know, you know.
That's right.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think I'm going to go with Bridge of Spies.
Okay.
With
So I need to
Sleepless in
watch
Seattle
that.
is number 2 and Beautiful
Oh,
Day in the
wow.
Neighborhood is number 3.
Oh.
Yeah.
So You've Got Mail didn't even hit your top 3.
Well, no, that probably would have been in my top 3, but you chose it. So I
Okay.
felt like I couldn't choose it too.
Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely.
I'm glad I got to go first because I was afraid you were going to take mine.
No.
And then I would have had nothing to talk about.
No. All right. Well, it was fun talking with you. And we just hope that we have brought a little levity and a little laughter and a little love, maybe a lot of love. And
nice alliteration.
Yeah. I'm married to a preacher. So after all, it comes naturally.
Right.
And we hope that you are edified and encouraged. And that's all we want. We just want to point you to the Lord and help you grow in your Christian walk as Kathy and I help each other. So we are glad to have you in on our conversation. And until next time,
Keep looking up. Talk to you later.